What if I told you that the next time you have a headache or you get a migraine or you wake up with some back pain or a kink in your neck or you get the flu or a really bad cold, that you can't take any medication? You can't take any ibuprofen. You can't take any NyQuil, no cold and flu medication. You just have to wait it out. And waiting it out means you have no idea how long it's going to last, when it's going to get better. You just got to suffer through it. Knowing the whole time that there's something at the store, there's something out there that will make you feel better and you can't take it. Well, that's kind of like, and it doesn't even touch the surface, but it's kind of like withdrawing from a substance. Your body is screaming at you. Your brain is screaming at you. You're sick, you're miserable, and you know the whole time exactly what will make you feel better, and you can't get it. You can't use it. You just have to suffer through it without knowing how long it's going to last, without knowing when it's going to get better. And that is exactly why getting through the sickness of any withdrawals feels almost impossible. And getting to the other side feels impossible. So, in today's video, I'm going to talk a little bit about all of it: the withdrawals, the sickness, what helped, what didn't help, the difference between the detoxes. Disclaimer: I am not a doctor. I am not a doctor. However, I was a therapist 20 years ago, but I'm definitely not a doctor. I, however, did some pretty extensive research on this topic for literally 2 decades. For 20 years, for 17 straight years, I was a heroin addict and went through withdrawals a million frickin' times, both in detoxes, which were state run free bed detoxes. We're not talking about fancy rehabs, whatever the kids are calling them these days. We're not talking about bring a couple of bags, bring your own PJs kind of detoxes. We're talking like hospital socks and some old scrubs kind of detoxes. I also withdrew in jail a couple times, cold turkey, from methadone, heroin, and benzos, because in jail they don't give you any medication. You're lucky if you get an ibuprofen. And I've also detoxed myself a million freaking times. What I wish I could have done differently, and at the end of the day, what actually finally worked for me and how I'm able to come up almost on 6 years into recovery. Because the longest clean time I could ever put together throughout that entire 17-year period of time of my heroin addiction was 11 days. Besides some jail time here and there, but I never really did long bids. And I did smuggle dope into jail with me, so that really doesn't count. So grab a coffee, a tea, a snack, turn your volume up, because we're going to get into a little bit of everything today. So like I talked about in my last video, which is entitled, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's about how learning to live a normal, regular life was so hard for me after 20 years in active addiction. But I talk in it a little bit about dependence and tolerance, and how literally your withdrawal symptoms and your sickness is directly dependent upon how long and how much you use, specifically when it comes to opiates and benzos. Really, the withdrawals are essentially kind of the same when it comes to benzos and opiates. However, with opiates, it's more of a body sickness. With benzos, it is too, but it's a different kind of anxiety, restlessness, sensitive skin, not sleeping kind of feeling, if that makes sense. I remember the very first time I ever got dope sick. I was sitting in my office at work when I was working as a therapist, or in my friend's office, and I was sitting on one of those office chair thingies that swing, and my legs were kind of like dangling off the chair, and my legs were so effing restless. Now, for me, that's usually the first thing to hit, is the restless legs and the sneezing. Throughout my entire addiction, I would always know when I was dope sick because I would start sneezing. And we're not talking like a sneeze. We're talking like 2, 3, 4 sneezes in a row. For me, it was always two. It was two here, and then like 5 minutes later, I do another two. And then 10 minutes later, I do another two sneezes. And then the sweating begins. And I would get so sweaty. I sweat like crazy anyways. I have hyperhidrosis, which is like excessive problematic sweating. So being dope sick for me, I would be drenched in sweat. I remember driving around all the time, dope sick, trying to hustle up money before I'd meet my dealer. And my band to my pants or my jeans under my boobs, the band on my pants would always be drenched, would always be wet, cold sweats. I'd be freezing and sweating at the same time. But also, my habits were always really big. So, depending on how big your habit is and how much you're using, is really dependent on how soon you're going to get dope sick or how bad the sickness is going to be or how bad your symptoms are going to be. Usually, let's say if I would get off E in the morning and have like a cotton shot, then by afternoon, say 6 hours later, I would start to get dope sick. I was doing 3 grams of dope a day. And I've been to dozens of detoxes, all state run free bed detoxes in Boston and the surrounding areas. Literally, I've been to all of them multiple times. And I've only ever completed one, maybe two. But you know what? The only one I remember completing is one, and it was in Worcester, which was like an hour from Boston and like an hour from my apartment. And I didn't have anybody to come pick me up, and I didn't have any way to get home because there's no train from Worcester to Boston. Trust me, I would have fucking left. And I thought about it every single second of every single fucking day. I thought about leaving because I was still so dope sick. Even with the meds that they give you in detox, I was always still so fucking dope sick. And I would never sleep. And I'd be tossing and turning all night in and out of the shower trying to ease my restless legs so that maybe I could relax for 10 minutes. It was miserable. And this is why I left all the detoxes AMA because, bro, like I said in the beginning, when you're sick and your body is screaming at you and your brain is screaming at you and you know exactly what's going to make you feel better, what are you going to do? It is an outright battle between your brain, your body, and what you know you should do. It is such a war to sit and stay in a detox and in a treatment when you're still dope sick. It is literally, you're fighting to survive. My body would always win. My thoughts, my brain would always win, and I would leave and I would go get high because I knew that was going to make me feel better. Because I didn't know how long it was going to last. Because usually, anytime I would land in treatment, it was court ordered. I was usually never there because I genuinely wanted to be there, which is also a huge factor. But I digress. It would have been so much easier for me to stay and to stick it out if I felt okay, if my sickness was subsided, if the meds were doing anything. And then there were the crackheads who used to come into detox because you can't really be admitted into detox unless you're physically dependent on something. And there's so many things out there saying that crack and cocaine aren't physically addictive. So addicts, coke addicts and crackheads have to lie and say that they're addicted to an opiate or something with a physical dependency in order to get a bed, a free bed at least, in a state-run detox. So all the crackheads would be in the detox taking the opiate protocol, the methadone or whatever it was, and they'd be literally knotted out. So effed up. I would be sitting there, dope sick, miserable, profusely sweating, shaking, staring at these damn crackheads who are in a straight nod all day long. I mean, that that was wild. Talk about triggers. I don't know if this is a thing in the entire country or what, but at least in Boston, because I had Medicaid, which paid for all of my detox. I mean, I've been to dozens of detoxes and I've had so many hospital stays and surgeries and hospital ER visits from infections. And it was all paid for through my Medicaid because Mass Health, it's called, is like it's the best Medicaid in the country, I swear to God. But in Boston, if you go to a detox more than once within a 30-day period of time, which I did quite often, you can't get the same opiate protocol more than once in a 30-day period of time. So usually I'd go to detox, be too sick to stay, and leave AMA. And then I would regret it a week later, probably because I was court ordered and I had warrants. Go back to another detox, but because I was in the system as being in a detox less than 30 days prior, I wasn't allowed to get the methadone protocol. They wouldn't give you the methadone or the Suboxone protocol more than once within a 30-day period of time. So instead, they would give you a Librium and clonidine protocol, which was essentially they're trying to tranquilize you and to like knock you out so that you just kind of sleep through it. But bro, I don't know which was more miserable, being like straight up dope sick or being dope sick and like so lethargic that you can't move. I mean, between the clonidine, which lowers your blood pressure so much that you feel like you're just like lightheaded, and then the Librium, we called it the Librium shuffle because you'd be just like shuffling. Like literally, I would want to crawl on the floor because I didn't have the energy to walk. But still being dope sick because you're not taking any actual medication that's going to help the symptoms. Essentially, they're just trying to kind of like lower your blood pressure so much that you can't move. And I still left AMA on this protocol. And you know what? I don't know how the fuck I got home. Honestly, I drove home, which is why I got banned from a lot of detox, from a handful. I don't want to say a lot, but like 3 detoxes I got banned from because I drove myself to detox, which apparently you can't do. But how the hell was I supposed to get there? I left this one detox AMA while on the Librium and clonidine protocol, and honestly, I don't know how I drove home. And the day after I got home from that detox, I overdosed, which is a common occurrence because you have the medications in you and then you go home thinking that you can get high either on the same amount or you use, and the drug and the heroin interacts with the drugs that you were taking in the detox. And a lot of times people end up overdosing as soon as they get home from detox. And I don't want to say that opiate withdrawal is the same for everything because trust me, it's not. After having to detox from methadone in jail, cold turkey, bro, I only needed to do that once to never want to go on methadone ever again. Coming off of methadone is like coming off of heroin multiplied by 100. It is so bad because it's synthetic heroin, because methadone is man made. It has all this synthetic stuff in it to make it what it is. So coming off of it is that much more miserable. The sickness is absolutely insane. However, in jail, when I did kick this, I was also coming off of heroin, which I was using on top of the methadone, and benzos, Klonopins. So I was coming off of methadone, heroin, and benzos in jail, cold turkey, with no meds. I was lucky to get an ibuprofen, and they would crush the ibuprofen and put it in water because they didn't want to give you the pill because they didn't want you crushing it up in your cell and sniffing it or abuse. I don't know, but it was disgusting. Even in order to get that ibuprofen, you had to put a note into the nurse, and then the nurse would get it maybe a couple days later, and then maybe the nurse would come see you. But usually by the time the nurse got to the unit, you would either feel better or you'd be like, fuck it, like I might as well just keep going and not take it anyways, because it was that brutal. Getting any kind of assistance in jail is just like kind of pointless, so most people just don't even bother trying. I mean, I spent 2 or 3 days in the infirmary, but the half-life of methadone is like 48 hours. So you don't even start withdrawing from the methadone for a couple days. Similarly with benzos, the half-life of benzos is like 3 to 5 days, bro. So I would go to jail and then I wouldn't even start withdrawing from the benzos until I was in Gen Pop. And by that time, it's like you're lucky if you're going to get a nurse on the unit. It's impossible to see any kind of to seek any kind of assistance. It was so bad. They were calling me bobblehead doll in jail this one time because I was shaking like I looked like a bobblehead doll. I couldn't eat. I lost like 20 pounds in 3 weeks. I was freezing, absolutely freezing, and just drenched in sweat all the time. I would shower. We had rec, like an hour of rec. We would be an 18-hour lockdown. And then we would have rec like twice a day. And I would shower anytime I left my cell just to ease my body aches and pains and my restless legs. I didn't sleep the entire time. I think that time I was locked up for almost a month, and I didn't sleep the entire time. I even put a note into the nurse and begged her for some Ensure, those like protein shakes. Oh my God, bro. And I didn't even get it. I was like telling her how bad my withdrawal symptoms were, begging for some kind of assistance. Like, I have no appetite, I can't eat, I hadn't eaten. And like, by the time I saw the nurse, like 2 weeks had gone by the time she made it to the unit. And I was just begging for some sort of Ensure, some sort of protein, some sort of something with nutrients because I was deteriorating. Actually, that time I was in jail, one of the other girls got hospitalized from methadone withdrawal. And I think they're more aware and informed now. And I think now, which is wild, they give you your methadone dose in jail. If you're on methadone, at least in Boston, I think that's what I heard. If you go to jail now, they give you your fucking methadone dose, bro. I mean, going to jail for me, like that was the only thing I would hate would be like withdrawing from heroin and just withdraw, just being sick, because it is makes jail absolutely more miserable. I would look at other people who didn't, like, who weren't junkies, and I'd be jealous of them in jail and be like, wow, jail must be so much easier. It was like, it must be so easy if you're not withdrawing from something. Like, that's how I thought. My methadone dose at the time, I think, was 80 milligrams. And then I was still using heroin on top of it. And then I was taking a bunch of pills, benzos, clonopins, all the things. In Boston, when I was using, I don't know if it's true anymore, but Johnny, well, we called them Johnnies, but gabapentin was a street drug. Gabapentin we bought off the street because gabapentin is said to increase the effects of whatever's in your system. So honestly, I can't really say. Like, I'm a bad example of how to stick it out in a treatment program because I always left or just continued to get high in treatment programs. The 11 days that I'm talking about that I was able to stay clean, I don't remember the detox that I went to. Like, my memory is shot, bro. I'm actually trying to write a book and it's so hard because my memory is shot. That time that I was able to stay clean for 11 days on my own, but I got placed into a 28-day holding program, and it was court ordered. Of course it was court ordered. It was always court ordered. And I wasn't sleeping. I hadn't yet slept a full night, or maybe I've like dozed off a couple times, but I would spend all night just staring at the ceiling and thinking about getting high. And I remember I was in the hood. I was in what's like the most dangerous street, or it was back then, in Boston. And it was very popular for gang violence and gangs. And this treatment program was literally on the most dangerous street in Boston. I was still dope sick. That's the thing, too. The 5 or 6 days I'd be in detox. If I went to a program after that, I was always still dope sick, still achy, restless legs, and not sleeping. So I was in this treatment program for, I don't know, a few days, 5 days, maybe a week. And I had called my dealer after thinking about getting high for several days and even shooting water. I would go into the bathroom and shoot water because I thought that would ease my thinking a little bit. But I finally picked up the payphone and called my dealer and I said, bro, can you come help me out? Like, this is where I'm at. The street I was on was so dangerous that my dealer absolutely hung up on me and wouldn't even come to where I was. That's how dangerous the street was. Like, it was always riddled with cops and gang members and all the things, which was fine. Like, I feel at home in those kind of environments, but that's just me. And then, of course, maybe like the next day, I ended up leaving. And then after a while of just getting used to going in and out of detoxes all over Boston, I kind of started only going to methadone protocol detoxes because my experience with Suboxone was wild. Back in my day, it started out as the pills, the octagon pills, the orange pills, which were freaking disgusting. And I got prescribed them only because I was selling them. I didn't really take them myself. But when I did try to take them, I would always go into instant withdrawals, precipitated withdrawals, which happens when you take it too soon. See, the thing with Suboxone is you have to wait until you are dope sick. Like, not starting to get dope sick. You have to wait until you are dope sick. And I could never wait that long. My habits were always so big that even when I would start to get dope sick, I would take the littlest piece of Suboxone and end up projectile vomiting in my bathroom because it would bring on the worst withdrawals. So I started telling myself that I was allergic to Suboxone because I was like, why is it not working? And it's only because I could just never wait until I was sick enough. And if I went to detox, to a Suboxone protocol detox, I would literally always get put into precipitated withdrawals. So I started prioritizing and really only going to methadone protocol detoxes. And you would think, oh, yeah, methadone, like, how are you still sick if they're giving you methadone? But the amount of methadone that they give you is just like, I think they would start you at like 20 or even 15 milligrams, and then they would start to wean you off of it. I mean, the dosing is so little. And if you have a huge habit, like I had a huge habit, it didn't do much of anything. And that's why they would give you the ibuprofen, and then they give you Bentyl for like the upset stomach, because a lot of times you get diarrhea and like really bad stomach issues when you're dope sick. But one time I ended up going to the hospital because they like literally gave me too much Bentyl because I was still dope sick and I was still having crazy symptoms, and they just kept giving me the non-narcotic medication, and I ended up losing like my peripheral vision, and they shipped me to the hospital. And actually, funny story, they forgot me at the fucking hospital, and I would have left. I would have absolutely left and just walked out of the hospital and went to get high, but I was like 45 minutes from my house in Boston, and all my stuff was in the detox. I was in Brockton, Massachusetts at a detox in Brockton, and I lived in Boston, in Dorchester, and it was like 45 minutes away. There was no way I could just leave I didn't have any connections in that area. So I sat at the hospital and they forgot about me. I think I ended up having to like sleep at the hospital that night because they forgot to come pick me up. It was crazy. So I'd always be jealous of the people who had like smaller habits, who were only out for like 3 months, 6 months, 2 months, a month. Like felt fine. They were sleeping at night. Oh, I would always be so jealous of the people who could sleep in detox. Most of the time, I'd have like 3, 4, 5, sometimes 8 roommates in detox, and I would be the only one who was up all fucking night just staring at the wall, flip-flopping in my bed, in and out of the showers. This is why I started detoxing myself, because let's be honest, like when the professional protocols are not working, you try to figure out better way to do it. It was always a similar protocol every time I detoxed myself. I'd usually do it with the Suboxone strips, or I'd get methadone pills. I had a friend who was prescribed the methadone pills, so I'd buy a few off of him, the wafers, and I would take as much as I needed to feel okay and then gradually wean off of it. But I would usually never make it until the end, and I'd always end up getting high. But on top of that, I would take, ibuprofen and gabapentin and clonidine and then some sort of benzo. And I would still be sick and I'd still not sleep. But at the end, what ended up working was the Suboxone strips. Once I'd start to get a little sick, I would take a benzo or a gabapentin or a clonidine, and then wait a little bit longer, and then I take Suboxone, and then I would wean off of the strips. All of these things I would use to detox myself. Now, again, I'm not recommending any of this. I did extensive research for a long fucking time, and this is what worked for me. So please do not take it into your own hands to go get these medications. The clonidine would help me sleep because it lowers your blood pressure, so I take it at night. Otherwise, I'd be shuffling around because it literally gives you no energy. The benzos would ease my anxiousness and my restless legs. The gabapentin would also ease my restless legs and my skin creepy crawlies, because gabapentin, or neurontin, was originally made for neuropathy. It works with the nerves in your joints, in your body, to ease pain, which is why it helps with the creepy crawlies in the skin, because that's where your nerve endings are, in your skin. And it eases the body aches and pains because it eases the nerves in your joints. And it also helps with your mood, because gabapentin is also prescribed for depression now. And then weed, of course. Weed helped me for the sleep. Specifically, I would only smoke or take a gummy or have a pen to sleep. That with the clonidine would help me sleep, because let me tell you, bro, not sleeping is like 80% of the time what would take me right out. I wish I knew then the studies that have been done on these kinds of things. Like, I never used the internet in these ways. I never like Googled how to detox from things. I just like took the knowledge that I had from the detoxes and the streets and the other junkies that I knew. And I just knew like the effects of the pills that I was taking. And I knew how much, I needed to feel a certain way. But if I had known then, like there's so much research done on how amino acids and protein can help, specifically when it comes to opiate withdrawal. 5-HTP and L-theanine can help dramatically with dopamine and serotonin production. Like, because after the dope sickness starts to fade a little bit, that lethargy, bro, you have zero energy. I would, like, my legs would just ache, right? And it would take all of my energy just to like get from my bed to the refrigerator or to the front door. Because opiate dependence changes brain chemistry to the point where your brain starts to build new receptors for both pain and for serotonin and dopamine. So once you stop using the opiate, the things that would normally bring you pleasure don't anymore, because your brain is so used to getting so much more from the drug, from the substance, that literally nothing brings you joy. Like, you don't feel happy, you feel depressed, you feel lethargic, you have no energy. And there's so many studies out there now of things that can help with that. There was one study I thought was so interesting where they studied people who ate a shit ton of protein and took amino acids essentially are protein. And the people who ate sufficient protein and took amino acids were significantly less likely to relapse in early recovery. I suggest looking that shit up. If you're like looking to like get clean and sober, that's so interesting to me. Your brain chemistry literally restructures. The longer you stay dependent on opiates or any substance really, and benzos in particular, benzos actually create holes in your brain similar to a brain diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia. Benzos do that to your brain. I mean, now my memory is so shot, bro. Like, I have a hard time. People will say to me, "Oh, remember that time that we went to blah blah," blah. And I'm like, "No, no, I don't." But any kind of long-term substance use, dependence, abuse restructures your brain and your brain chemistry. So it's going to take about 6 months for your brain to rewire and to get used to not depending on that substance. But it does happen. It does happen eventually. But this is also why people throw themselves into exercise. And this is also why you see a lot of people who get quote unquote addicted to like running and exercising and recovery, because our brains are so used to those dopamine hits and that gratification in those ways and that pleasure, that we seek things that give us that same dopamine rush. And for a lot of people, exercise does that. For me, exercise never came. Bro, I've tried. Exercise doesn't do shit for my brain. Exercise just makes me tired. Exercise just makes me want to sleep after. Like, I don't get any kind of like high. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Like, am I the only one? Because I swear I'm the only one that doesn't get some sort of like dopamine high. I've never been a runner. I actually hate running. So, like, I don't know, bro. I don't know. So, I say all this to say, I'm making this video as a testament and proof and evidence that anyone can come off of this drug. Anyone can come out on the other side. I'm not in any way recommending, these are not recommendations. This is just my testimony, my evidence. It's proof that literally you can come off this shit, right? You can come off and you can change, and you just got to give your body some time. It is a constant battle. I'm not saying it's fucking easy. It is a constant battle. A lot of us don't win. There's too many of us that have lost this battle. I have lost literally probably almost 90% of the contacts in my phone are dead now. There is no getting high anymore. And this is why, coming off of it and detoxing, like, I don't know about the protocols today because it's been a long time, but I know it's possible. The question is, how bad do you want it? Because you know what? I never really wanted to be in detox. I was always court ordered. It's really about winning the war between your brain, your body, and your logical thinking. Like, you know what you're supposed to do. And leaving AMA and giving up and going and getting high only hurts you in the long run. We search for that instant gratification. Addiction teaches us that instant gratification is sustainable. My addiction taught me that getting high would fix everything. I never thought about the following week, the future, the next month, because I was only making it worse for myself. You only have to detox one time. You only have to go through the sickness one freaking time. Most of us, though, it takes several, multiple, dozens of times, like myself. But I truly think now, looking back, that it's a mindset thing. Because if I had thought about just getting over the hump, back then, if I had thought about and told myself and just stick it out, this isn't going to kill you. It's not going to kill you. In a few days, what's a few days is really nothing. Even though it feels like forever and it feels like it's never going to get better and it feels impossible to feel any better when you're in the moment and you're dope sick and you feel awful. You know, I wish I did a few times. I wish I gave myself a chance. I never gave myself a chance. I would just leave. Had I known then how important mindset is, bro, changing my mindset has completely changed my entire life. It has allowed me to change my story. I am not the same person I once was. I think differently. I react differently. I behave differently. If I had known then how important mindset and thinking is, I probably would have been able to stick it out. So if you take anything from this video, be it that recovery is possible no matter how bad you think your story is, and changing your story is fucking possible. I'm going to be 46 in a week, a little over a week. I don't know. I'm not keeping track. I'm getting old. I'm a big girl age, and I didn't even choose myself or walk away from that life until I was 40, 41 years old. So it's never too late to change it all around. I promise. So with that, I think that's all I've had. I think I'm going to stop blabbing now because I'm fumbling over my words. But before I forget, like and subscribe. Okay, that's all. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.